Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 85th episode of the Triboro Podcast. I am your host, Justin Alonso, and my dad made fun of me the other day for saying it in a different way, so I'm just going to say his first name without saying the long version of his first name, joined by Nick O'Brien, not Nicholas O'Brien. How are you doing, Nick O'Brien?
Well, I think our dad's about to fight.
Why?
My dad hates nicknames.
Oh, he hates Nick.
Oh yeah,
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
yeah. Hates nicknames. It gives me one of the most nicknameable names. But you could probably blame my mom for that one.
Yeah,
But yes, I am
that
here.
could not be more of a nicknamed nickname.
Name.
Name.
Right. Like,
It's literally in the name.
yeah. I think, from the top of my head, only my brother and my dad call me by my full name. Everyone else is Nick, or, like, other names.
Yeah.
Like jerk off and idiot and get the fuck out of the way,
Dumbass.
What are you doing here at 2 in the morning?
Nicknames
Get out of my
for
room.
people named Nicholas. Let's see this.
Hmm?
Nick, Nicky, Cole? Oh yeah, because
Haven't had that
Colas.
one.
What'd you say?
Oh, Colas. Yeah.
Nico,
Okay. Yep.
Klaus,
Nope.
Nick, Nico.
Yep.
I'm gonna call you
I've got a few
Klaus.
Nickies in my past.
Klaus.
Klaus. My name is
But
Claus. I'm Santa.
yeah,
I'm
but
just waiting for him to fall from the roof so I could take his suit.
baseball started. What is this bullshit we're talking about?
Christmas.
So spring training has officially started. Players reported, I think, yesterday for the Yankees. Pitchers and catchers been there for about a week. Somehow Marcus Stroman is there on a yacht, but not on a yacht, but in there.
Yep.
Who knows? Yeah.
Spring training.
Spring training. Just go right into Bronx.
Let's get into it.
That one is drilled deep to right field. There it goes. See ya.
That ball is high. It is far. It is gone.
This is 161st Street, Yankee Stadium. Transfer is available to the B and D train.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a OG episode for the first time in maybe 17 millennia. So, going into the Yankees moves, because they have made one big one, or one medium-sized one, and then a lot of small ones. I'm not going to talk about the guys that got DFA'd and then re-signed, and then re-signed and then DFA'd, re-signed, DFA, because that happened to a couple of guys. I'm looking at you, Owen White. The first one, though. The big news. They re-signed Tim Hill on a 1-year, $2.85 million deal with a team option for a third year. Love that deal. I mean, that is the exact type of deal I wanted. I thought they were going to be forced to give him 2 years. So it being 1 year and a team option, absolutely love that personally. And you look at where he turned to with the Yankees, because they changed his arm angle, because his arm angle was somehow even higher than it was with the Yankees when he was with the White Sox. They lowered it even more, and in the 20-25 innings that he pitched with the Yankees, he had an 11 run value on his sinker in a 122 stuff plus. In all of baseball, he had the second lowest extra base hit per plate appearance last year, behind Emmanuel Clase. So he had he had an absurd run value on the sinker once getting traded to the Yankees. He did not give up extra base hits, which is what you want from a ground ball pitcher. So
Absolutely.
just had to happen. Finally have an actual lefty in the bullpen now. But then getting into other moves, they signed Carlos Carrasco to a minor league deal. People were tweaking when this happened. They're like, oh, that means Marcus Stroman's gone, yada, 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 yada. Like, it's depth. It's a minor league deal.
For 162 games. Like, you would think it'd be more known at this rate how, things work. Like, you can't... if you go in with only 5 starting pitchers,
You are
that's not
winning
gonna
60
work.
games.
Yeah, it's not gonna work. You need like call it 8, 10 viable starters in your organization because someone's bound to get hurt.
Before trading for
You know,
anyone.
right? Someone's bound to get hurt. You're gonna have like a doubleheader. You're gonna have guys just need to be skipped in the rotation for whatever if it's not like a long-term thing.
17 games in 17 days.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Long stretches of games, like it happens. You need more than just 5.
Yeah. But I also think it's a thing of he isn't the worst guy to get around and be there with spring training with all the young guys.
Mm-mm,
He's definitely because he was never
not at all.
he never had the best stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like he was always one of those guys that was like a control and like knowing how to pitch guy. So I think you get him in spring training and like if some of the younger guys end up talking to him, he's a great guy for them to learn from.
Right.
So
No,
worst
I
case
definitely agree.
scenario, you spent fucking nothing to send a guy a minor league invite and some guys may learn from him. So like if he teaches Will Warren like, yeah, this is how you actually control a pitch, be like, huh. Then I think that minor
Who
league
would
invite
affect
was
it?
definitely worth it.
Yes,
So,
for sure.
but then another guy that could see the Yankees this year, or most likely will, they signed Tyler Maztek to a minor league deal. I'm going to quote
Sack.
what I have in my notes. Needed a guy with nuts.
He does indeed.
Because I feel like that was kind of what like Tommy Kahnle was, where like Kahnle was just a psycho. You need that in a bullpen. Like
Yeah.
that is what Tyler Maztek is. Granted, he may not be a good pitcher anymore. So he may just not be on the team anymore. He has not had recent success due to injuries, just not being good the last 2 years, 3 years, whatever.
Year and a half.
Year and a half, whatever.
Call it.
So he's definitely a reclamation project. But you see this for relievers all the time. Guys that will suck for 2 years, go somewhere else. They'll actually become a lot better. So just definitely a name to keep an eye out in spring. One of the more high profile guys, I think, to watch. That's a non-roster invitee. Then a couple other guys that they did sign. They signed, what do I have to say it? Javian Sandridge. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. To a minor league deal. 25-year-old lefty. Absolutely just disgusting stuff. Fastball sits 96, goes up to about 98, 99. 54 whiff rate on the slider. A 128 expected weighted on base on the changeup.
Nice.
18%
Love that.
walk percentage.
There it is.
Yeah.
There's
But-
the bugaboo.
He pitched a lot in the minors. I think he had like a very small cup of tea in the majors. I believe it was with the Padres. But I think this is something that could affect it.
Okay.
I forget where exactly he played. I just have it written down in my notes. He played in, I believe, New Mexico, the minors. Do you know what the elevation there is?
High.
3,700 feet. So 3/4 of course field.
Right.
Everyone talks about how
Okay.
you don't get the same dip, you don't get the same control on it. I'm not saying that he's going to become like a Cy Young candidate now. Disgusting
Yeah.
stuff, take him out of a place that is not good for pitchers. And also in AAA, like, believe in like his league, the average ERA was like 6 and he had like a 4.5.
That checks out.
So it's like, okay, he was a
Yeah.
below average pitcher ERA wise in a very heavy run environment, disgusting stuff, just get the walks down. So
The story of every reliever.
those are 2 lefties I've talked about that are reclamation projects. You ready for a third? That they're bringing
well.
in Brent
You got it.
Hedrick.
Okay.
Hedrick. I don't know. I know his first name is Brent. I could tell you that for a fact.
Hedrick sounds
Hedrick?
right. Hedrick.
Yeah, maybe. 27-year-old lefty. So you know how I just said Sandridge, throws very, very fast.
Uh-huh.
Brent does not. He averaged 92 on his fastball on a good day last year. The last 2 years, he's become more of a ground ball pitcher. He had like 2 innings last year and like 25 innings in 2023. So he's not really a guy that has that major league experience at all. But that being said, I want you to guess what type of pitcher he is when it comes to strikeouts and walks. If you had to guess for a reliever.
I'm gonna guess just throwing out a bone that high strikeouts.
Yes.
But he walks everybody and his mother.
Yes. How did you know?
I'm him.
But something interesting that I saw was he does have a lower arm angle. Not like a submariner arm angle, but a 34 degrees in 2023.
Okay.
So that is relatively
sidearm.
lower. Kind of. Not 100% sidearm, but like getting there. So I'd be interested to see if they do something like Tim Hill, where they just see a guy with like a somewhat lower arm angle. They lower it a little more, and then he gets a lot more success, finds a lot more control that way. So that's really all I had for the recap of roster moves. But of course, it's been a while since we've been able to say this. Your injury report brought to you by Triboro MD.
Oh my god.
So we'll start with the smaller ones and then get into the big one. I just love how Aaron Boone, when they got to camp, said like we have a clean bill of health, and then it's like this
Bam,
no. Yeah, this guy hasn't been throwing for a month. How is that a clean bill of health?
I don't think so.
Jay Cousins has a right forearm strain. It's unknown if he'll miss time, but they did say the UCL looks great after imaging, which is huge, obviously, with a guy when it comes to that. May make it a little harder to trade in Ian Hamilton now. Like because like Hamilton, Cousins are two guys that are being discussed.
Yeah.
We talked about how like they're very similar.
Yes.
May make it a little harder. If he doesn't get beat out by someone else, I'd assume he's on the opening day roster though. I don't think this injury is gonna play into it.
I think it's fair.
Let me check right now. He may actually. Jay Cousins has an option. So I think they may honestly slow play him and just start him in the minors because of that. And if he didn't have an option, he'd probably start on the IL. But yeah, so that's just something to keep an eye on. Another guy to keep an eye on. Trent Grisham strained his hamstring a couple weeks ago, but he's resumed to full baseball activities. And as of yesterday, Sunday, he ran close to full speed.
All right, there you go.
So he may even play in the first game. Who knows? First, second game. But when it comes to like those type of injuries, they are going to slow play it a lot.
Especially this early. There's no reason to push it.
Who cares? Realistically. But then the absolute big one that just seems like it's getting worse and worse the more stuff that's coming out. Giancarlo Stanton, they said, he has discomfort in both elbows. Okay. Boone likened it to tennis elbow. Okay. He said it's an issue Stanton's been dealing with all last year, including the playoffs. Okay. It's been 3 to 4 weeks since he has swung a bat. Describe the pain as very high.
I think I'm more impressed by the fact that it's both elbows.
I don't get it. I don't get...
Because I'm looking at it now. I mean, the only thing that I see here, like, for tennis elbow specifically, I know they compared it to it, but it might not be completely 1-to-1. You can only treat it with rest, pain relief, and physical therapy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if this was an issue in the playoffs in October, November, why was not... Again, maybe there's nothing else to do. I don't know. But why was there nothing else done?
It's...
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember he was talking about it, I think it was this morning or whatever. Or it might have been last night, whatever. But it's like a very small tear in...
Yeah, that is tennis
elbows. Right. So it's like, if it's a small tear, stay with me. can you not repair it unless that it's gonna do more bad than good?
I feel like that because a lot of times, like all sprains and strains is tears. It's
That's
just
fair.
very small tears. So I feel like it's one of those
Fair.
things of why risk going under the knife when you're probably also gonna like make it a lot longer recovery time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because if he gets surgery for it, he's probably out for the first month minimum of the season, month and a half.
I mean, like if it's back in November, maybe
Oh, that's
not.
different. That's different.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like not now. Like if it was an issue, it should have been addressed earlier.
And even a thing too is like I was never diagnosed with tennis elbow, but both my parents were, and my forearms were like hurting really bad, and like I was talking to them about it, and they were like, "Yeah, you literally like have the exact symptoms I had when I had tennis elbow," and I literally just took a couple dumbbells, went like this, for like a couple times a week for like 2 weeks, and I was fine after.
Right.
And like it literally was to the point where like at the end of like the last like couple weeks when I was working, I could barely lift stuff without it hurting like a mother. So it's like I literally did that. I iced them and I lifted like 3-pound dumbbells for like 30 reps.
Right.
How can I do that, but a professional athlete chiseled like an Adonis can't? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
that's
It's just it sucks because it's every year, Stan. It's something else.
I will say though, if he was dealing with it all last year and in the playoffs, is it really that big of a deal?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's just a
Just
pain tolerance thing, I like Stan's one of those guys of he wants to be there every day and he hates when he misses time. So if it's a pain tolerance thing, I don't really worry that he's gonna miss time. But
hmm Yeah, it's just it's definitely worrisome when it just comes out and it's like, oh yeah, he hasn't swung a bat in a month. I'm like, oh okay, sick,
why
cool,
didn't he get this fixed if he knew it was a thing for a while?
right? Yeah, so it's a little concerning, but it's just like, uh man, I mean, obviously you feel bad after being frustrated, like, oh my god, this guy's hurt again, but it's just like you just feel bad, like he can't catch a break,
I'm more mad at the medical staff than I am at Stan.
right?
Like
No, that's
that's a
fair.
severe mismanagement of an injury.
Yeah,
Severe. So unless he like re-aggravated it or something, like
yeah,
that's so bad. So, but the better question is, let's just say in a hypothetical world, Stan misses 2-3 weeks to begin the season.
yeah.
Who would be the DH? Because at least on opening day, I find it very hard to believe they DH Judge.
Yeah.
Because I think they would want Judge like back in right field and all of that. And like that's a semantics thing, whatever. But I find it really hard, and I also don't think they have a fourth outfielder that's good enough to play. I think right now the perfect answer is Ben Rice.
Mm,
Just because it kind of was a thing of like everyone wants Ben Rice to play, but he doesn't really have a place he can play, and he was gonna kind of be like a backup first baseman / backup catcher.
right. Yeah.
That's probably my like go-to if I had to pick someone as of right now, because I don't know if you've seen this, but have you seen Ben Rice this
No.
spring training? He looks yoked. Like we make jokes about like best shape of your life. No, he looks like he added like 15 pounds of muscle.
Best shape of your life. All right.
Kevin Parada's doing that, but
I know. He
by
cut
cutting out
out
caramel ice
salted
cream.
caramel ice cream.
Yeah, but
Good for Kevin.
yeah. So
I guess.
something about Ben Rice too is he's been working almost primarily with the catchers this
Right.
offseason, and a lot of people like kind of forget this, but up until last year, he was a catcher in the minors. He'd play first base a couple times or whatever, but they kind of positioned or changed him to first base because say what you want about the Yankees system, whatever, they are one of the best systems when it comes to developing catchers. You see it every single year where they just have another catcher, another catcher, another catcher. Like you look at oh my god, why can't I think of his name? They literally had to change trade what's his face to the Mets because they didn't have roster
Oh,
spots.
Torrens, yeah.
Yeah, and look how good Torrens was for the Mets. You
Right.
were able to trade Augusto Ramirez, who scouts have been saying has an absurd bat, for Jazz Chisholm, and who was a top 100 prospect, because you could develop catchers at such a good level. Obviously you have Gary Sanchez, who was elite for a couple of years. You have, why can't I think of it? I'm trying to remember who was the exact guy, but it became a thing where you just had too many catchers that Ben Rice couldn't play catcher because they
Right.
wanted his bat in the lineup and to develop, but they didn't have a position for him, so they're like, all right, learn first base.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that they had to get him every day at bats. That way, obviously in spring training, doesn't matter because when you're in like practices, all that, you could work out as many guys as you want. So
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what they do if they have him like kind of as like a rotating at 3 different positions.
Definitely. And I'm kind of shocked there hasn't been more talk about Ben Rice kind of being the backup catcher. Because I mean, I personally I think I'd rather Ben Rice over Alex Jackson. You know what I mean? Like, and I
Alex
feel like
Jackson's
the
probably my
bench.
5th option.
Yeah, like I feel like the bench could also use another lefty. I mean, obviously depending what happens with TJ LeMahieu, but like I don't know. I'm shocked there isn't a little more talk about that because he did have major league success at one point. Alex Jackson, not really. So it's like I'm not like I know Alex Jackson's more of a defensive minded catcher. Like unless he's like far and away like really good, I don't see why not give Ben Rice a shot. But in the same breath, also don't love giving him like kind of like the half and half baked kind of playing time type stuff. So that can also be another thing there, but
But that's why I think this is the perfect solution.
Mhm.
You have him as like a backup catcher / first base, and he plays 3 out of 4 days. And like now, like you rotate him in at DH, stuff like that. So
Fair.
that way you're playing him like if Sand's out like 6 out of 7 days. It's just at a different
Right.
spot. Because
Even
like
if it's kind of like a platoon thing.
yeah, just something. And you look at Ben Rice too, like a lot of people were saying like, oh, they didn't know how the defense would play. He had 0 outs above average last year at first. So he was an average first baseman, which is fine. Like you're not a liability there. And I even remember like talking to you about it. Like there were some plays he made that were really nice and like really athletic. So it probably
Yeah.
is just a comfortability thing too at first base. And I trust
sure.
this Yankees just player development to develop catchers defensively too. Because you look at how many guys that like the issue is, oh, they're coming up, they're not seen as a good defensive catcher. Or they're not seen as like a good defensive player either. Like look at Anthony Volpe. Anthony Volpe was described as an above average defender. He is one of the best defensive players in baseball. He is in the running for a platinum glove every single year. Austin Wells, stud. Austin Wells is so good defensively that they were able to trade a platinum glove catcher away.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about Ben Rice at all defensively. I think wherever they put him, he's gonna rake. It's just a thing of giving him more at bats. So that's all I had on Ben Rice. Getting into another rookie, Jason Dominguez. So he said that he went through this is his words, a crash course in left field all off season at the Yankees developmental complex, and great. It looks like he's just gonna be shoehorned in to get the job. I don't say shoehorned in, but like it's like his to lose.
Yeah.
And just another tidbit on it, he said he felt he lost his right-handed swing last year, so he worked on it like in the offseason. Now he feels like he's at a point where it's comfortable. Where that always was a worry with me with Dominguez is how he would be as a righty. So I really hope that's because this Yankees team did struggle a lot with lefties. So if you get a competent lefty in Dominguez or righty in Dominguez, you add in a guy like Paul Goldschmidt who roasts lefties, and you have a better lineup against lefties. Because you got to remember, Alex Verdugo was a nothing against lefties. Austin Wells, play him more against lefties, because how is he going to get better against lefties if you do not play him more against lefties? But, yeah. Very excited for that with Dominguez, because we've talked about it all offseason. Your outfield has a much, much higher floor now, getting rid of Verdugo, and it's a lot better defensively, too.
Yeah.
So, what was
More
I gonna-
well-rounded. Which
More
I think
well-rounded,
can
yeah.
be the story of the Yankees roster right now. It's more well-rounded.
Yeah. I talked about it on the radio. I think they're at the point where right now they are as good a team on paper as they were last year. Give or take maybe a win, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think about the same team as last year, talent-wise.
Yeah, it's definitely carried by the pitching, but it's around there. I can't confidently say like,
It's better or worse.
yeah, this team is as good as a team with Juan Soto.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, but I'm not going to completely disagree with you because again, I do think this gets carried by the pitching a ton because this lineup is, knock on wood, one injury away from somebody
Dude, I was thinking about that last
being
night.
a bad lineup.
I was thinking about that last night,
Or
and
below average lineup.
that idea made me want to kill myself. But one thing too, and I think I talked about this on the radio too, at Triboro Sports Show every Thursday from 4 to 6.
About me.
Yeah, without you, but people were asking comments for you.
For me.
But I find it.
Can't get enough.
I hate this narrative that Anthony Volpe was given the job at spring training. Like he was just given to it. And like, no. Even you could remember how much we were talking about it, about how Anthony Volpe, like, yeah, he has an outside chance, and then he just roasted the ball. Just went off. And then I still remember how big of a deal it was when they announced that he was getting the starting job with like 2 days left in spring training. Like a couple days before, like I think it was like a day before they did the what's the word?
You do it.
Exhibition game against the Nationals, which was like the last thing before opening day. Yeah. So it wasn't like because people were like, oh, why was Anthony Volpe given and Dominguez wasn't? No, they wanted to slow play Volpe, but he just did not give them a chance.
Yeah. So since I just pulled it up now as you were talking about it, let's remind the audience what he did in the spring training of 2023 leading into the season. In 19 games, 65 plate appearances, he hit 3 home runs. He hit 309 for 415 on base, a 618 slug. He walked almost 14% of the time. He struck out less than 25% of the time, and he had a 167 weighted runs created plus in spring training.
How many stolen bases?
Yes, it's a small sample. 5.
5.
Small sample, but at the same time, this is a guy who absolutely just ran away with the shortstop job. Because remind me, who else was in competition for a shortstop with Peraza?
IKF.
Forgot about IKF. But since Peraza's still in the organization, I'm gonna pull him up quick.
Bad.
Wherever he is.
Really, really bad.
Where
I remember that.
Is he projected on the bench? He is. There he is. Found him.
I think he had like a sub 800. Like a sub, maybe even a sub 700.
Spring training 2023 in 15 games. 1 home run. He hit 190, 306 on base, 310 slug.
Yeah.
70 weighted runs created plus.
Yeah.
So not good.
Yeah. And they also just didn't want to play IKF at short because you saw how bad he was when he was shortstop.
That was an experiment of all time.
As a utility guy, it worked. Not as a shortstop.
Every day, not so much.
But yeah, that's just something that's like I've seen floating around Twitter, and it's like, no, they did not hand it to him.
Yeah,
so
and like
they're treating Dominguez the same way.
I kind of rag on him a little. I feel like I kind of rag on Volpe a little. So, but even as someone who does that, like going into the season, I was saying he should be the starting shortstop because of the spring training he had.
And let me look at Volpe last year. Anthony Volpe had an 86 WRC plus. Not good. He had a 3.5 WAR. 3.4 WAR season. The
He
only
would be an
game,
average hitter.
the only games he missed was because he had the fucking stomach blood bug and he was shitting himself in Houston.
Yeah.
That is the only games that he missed last year. He's durable, and just you saw that he changed his approach in the playoffs. He kind of crouched down a little bit more, was a little more compact. So I'll talk more about it when we do our infield predictions and like deep
Whenever that
dive,
may be.
whenever that may be. But so since I mentioned the infield, I'll mention third base now. Brian Cashman said the roster isn't complete going into spring training. Goddamn right. These are your options for third base: Oswaldo Cabrera, DJ LeMahieu, Oswald Peraza, Jorbit Vivas. I've said it before, and I will say it again. I absolutely love Oswaldo Cabrera. I think he has upside. I do not want him locked into a position. I think Oswaldo Cabrera is the most valuable when he has 7 different gloves. And if you're getting blown out, give him an eighth and let him be the pitcher. So, I don't like the idea of locking in Oswaldo Peraza into a starting role. I think that you get so much more value when he is playing wherever you want him playing. Like, say for whatever reason you don't want Ben Rice to DH and you want to give Judge an off day, put Oswaldo Cabrera in the outfield. This is a spot starter. So, that's my whole thing with Peraza, or with Cabrera. I don't want him locked in. DJ LeMahieu, corpse. He's cooked. Oswald Peraza, what has he shown you offensively to make you think he is a even close to below average major league player?
Yeah.
Jorbit Vivas, I don't think he's even close to ready. You do not have a viable solution to third base without messing up another part of the team. I think that's a perfect way to put it.
Basically.
So,
Like you're cutting away from something else to kind of mash someone into this position.
yeah. And I'm at the point where I wouldn't hate Nolan Arenado depending on the contract, but even then, like, you're really going to want to have Arenado for the next 3 years. And if they trade for Arenado, I doubt that makes me even less confident they're going to DFA DJ LeMahieu, because that's another DJ LeMahieu buddy.
Oh, is it really?
Well,
Oh,
from
Colorado.
Coors, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's even on the board for them, because it's so confusing. Because you have half reporters saying, "Oh, they are very much so interested in Nolan Arenado." The other half saying they have not had a single talk whatsoever this offseason. So
Yeah.
if I had to guess, I would say they're not that interested.
Yeah.
Based off reading the tea leaves, and because I feel like if they were, he'd be a Yankee already.
Yeah, I agree. Especially after signing Goldschmidt. I think that would have been something that kind of transpired pretty quick, but yeah, it's not even like you mentioned, it's not even that you want Nolan Arenado, it's just the fact that it's probably better than what you have.
And
Because
listen,
at least you'll give like elite defense.
and his swing could not profile worse for Yankee Stadium, but he's your 7-8 hitter. He's giving you elite defense. I mean,
Like,
okay.
if he's call it league average at Yankee Stadium, but he's like call it, I don't know, a 120 on the road.
Take a 110.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of like, but again, it's not that you want Arenado. It's just it's better than what you have, which is a very low bar to pass.
And I will say, the biggest competition in the American League plays pretty well at those stadiums. It's a very good swing for those stadiums. So
Fair enough. But then you're also playing Yankee Stadium light for another
6 games,
couple games.
But and you also don't sign a guy just because he's going to play well at call it 10 games total against other people.
Right.
So
it just I honestly am kind of confused it's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but like I'm kind of confused what the Yankees' plan is for third base. Like future-wise, right? Because I just took a quick glance at the free agents for 2026. It's Alex Bregman who can opt out, Eugenio Suarez, Yandy Diaz, who has a club option, which I'm sure the Braves are going to pick up.
Do not put him
Jorge
at third
Polanco,
base.
Jorge Polanco, who has a mutual option. Then it's Yoan Moncada, Miguel Andujar, Urshela, Paul DeYoung, and then Murakami, who's coming over.
Who's the first
Likely
baseman?
coming over. Right, who's more of a first baseman. So, unless you're banking on, I don't know, is Vivas your third baseman of the future?
I think the
It-
answer is Lombard.
Okay.
I was gonna get into that, but a couple of the notable non-roster invitees, he's one of them. The number 4 prospect. A lot of people love him. So he's a shortstop, but I could definitely see him just transitioning to third base.
Yeah.
So, or if they want to
Yeah.
do Jazz at third and then put him at second, whatever, just something along those
But
lines.
even then, he's not even 20 years old. He's basically 20 years old. But
That's
like
yeah.
even going into next year, who are you putting at third base? Yeah, right? I don't know. I feel like something's missing. I feel unless I'm missing something, I don't think I don't think they've done a good enough job in preparing for obviously this season, but the future.
Yeah.
At that position specifically.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with you. It's gonna be very interesting to see how they do it. 2 quick little things. Some of the notable non-roster invitees, because I mentioned it. These rankings are based off Fangraphs, and I don't think I agree with some of them. There's definitely one at the end that I do not agree with, but Chase Hampton, number 6 prospect, George Lombard, number 4, Rafael Flores, catcher/first base, number 20, Spencer Jones, number 3, TJ Rumfield, 31, Alex Jackson, the catcher they got in the Fernando Cruz trade, and then Roderick Arias, 15. I don't understand that one at all. He was the
Seems
number
low.
1 international prospect, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago that they signed. He's shown a lot. He hasn't. The bat's been very up and down, but he's shown a lot of potential. He's awesome defensively. So for me, number 15, when he was the number 1 international prospect a couple years ago, I don't understand that. I feel like that's way
Yeah.
too harsh.
Yeah.
That it is also another trend I do notice, that when guys are drafted, they get a lot more leeway in prospect rankings than if they were international signing. Because I still remember when Spencer Jones was the number 1 prospect over Dominguez for a bit, and it's just
Right.
like I don't agree. I love Spencer Jones, but I don't necessarily agree with that.
I think it's because maybe they're just so young, so it's so
I agree
volatile.
too. Yeah.
Right. You can't it's extremely difficult to, look at a kid who's 16 and be like, yeah, he's gonna be a stud. Sometimes they just have the tools for it, but sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yeah. So yeah. A lot of interesting stuff to see. Really looking to see like Spencer Jones, George Lombard, even like Chase Hampton's the guy that could have time on the major league roster. And there's other guys too, like Will Warren. I'm really interested to see how he does. It's something that I also do want to talk about. People talk about how the Yankees farm system is like horrific, one of the worst in the league. Think about how many guys recently graduated though.
Right.
You had 2 guys that were top 3 in Rookie of the Year. You have Anthony Volpe, who, like I said, just had a 3.4 WAR season. I don't know if they have Dominguez graduated or not yet, but he's going to graduate soon officially. So I think there is kind of like this. Yeah, because all of their good prospects just graduated and are on. That is the whole point of a farm system. So, and guess what? They still can replenish it. So, because they do that every year where they have a couple guys that just come out of nowhere. They have a bunch of guys that were first, second round picks that were just hurt last year. So, very interesting to see that. But the last thing is this whole Marcus Stroman saga. I am at the point where, well, let me give a little context. So, he didn't show up for the first 2 days of spring training because he was on a yacht. And Boone said, like, no, he's fine. He'll come, whatever. He's showing up, said that he's not going to accept a role in the bullpen. And I believe Brian Cashman said they're still trying to trade him. I think both sides are relatively professional with it. Because think about it from Marcus Stroman's point of view. You know this team is actively doing everything they possibly can to try and trade you, but he's still showing up. He's still pitching, and also it doesn't make sense for him to accept a bullpen role. Because are you really going to pay a guy $18 million to maybe be an average bullpen pitcher?
Yeah, and I feel like that's generous.
I think Marcus Stroman is a solid pitcher. We talked about it last year,
Yes.
about how he got absolutely fucked by the infield defense. But I think it's just a shitty situation. I think it could be, people are acting like this is handled like so bad. I think it could be handled so much worse. It could be, this could be such a worse situation. So yeah, he just needs to be, for his own good, he just needs to be traded.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because both parties are like broken up in public, but they can't leave each other. It's tough. I get it from both points of view. I think Stroman probably could have handled the media a little better, if I'm being honest. I understand that, he's a starting pitcher and, he takes pride in that. And I'm not trying to shoot down confidence because Marcus Stroman is very confident. That's without a doubt.
That's his game. That's his game.
That's his, yeah, exactly. But it's like, I don't know. I just feel like it could have been handled a little better from his side of things. But at the end of the day, it's a very tough situation for him, and I can't exactly blame him. At the end of the day, I blame Brian Cashman for giving him my contract last season. You know what I mean? Like you had very good starting pitching depth. Marcus Stroman was never a necessity. Never made sense from the beginning.
Yeah. I don't think it would be a bad contract if it was just a 2-year contract. The vesting option is what's like throwing a wrench into
That's
this.
why nobody wants him.
Because no one wants to pay for the vesting option if
Right.
he does vest.
Like, you're stuck with him.
Yeah.
I think, personally.
I don't know.
I don't.
But then you can do a 6-man rotation.
Right.
Like,
because then you're gonna have a guy who's very unhappy on the roster, and that's gonna breed negativity, and it's just not a good environment.
I will say though, it's spring training. Guys either on the Yankees or on other teams are going to get hurt. That's just the
Yes,
nature of pitching.
absolutely.
So if no one on the Yankees gets hurt, someone on another team will get desperate for starting
Right.
pitching because their starters
You would
get
think.
hurt. So, not even you will think. It will happen.
Well,
will a trade
yeah.
happen because of it? Who knows? But another team will get desperate for starting pitching.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
So, that's all I had. Unless you had anything else. A lot of stuff to look at. I think definitely that kind of last couple spots in the bullpen, how some of these prospects work. If Stan's not going to be ready, how they handle that DH. And for the love of God, get a fucking third baseman. I will take Willie Castro. Please. But, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything else. So with that being said, let's just get right into Queens.
It's out of here! And the Mets win it!
This is Mets Willets Point. Transfer is available to the 7 local train.
Transfer is available to the Q48 bus.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Queens. Juan Soto's in spring training. Pete Alonso's in spring training. Pitchers have reported. Catchers have reported. Position players are on their way, if not already there. There's baseball on my Twitter feed. Live, active baseball drills. No better time. So, very excited. But, got a lot to get into. A lot of kind of notes from past week. Pitchers and catchers reporting. But, of course, can finally bring back your injury report brought to you by Triboro MD. I'm throwing this guy in here. It is a signing, but he is hurt. But the Mets are bringing back Drew Smith on one of those 1+1 deals. He got Tommy John around July last year, so it's very unlikely to see him this year. I think it's like $1 million this year, $2 million next year, something like that. But Drew Smith, I think he gets a lot of hate from Mets fans specifically, but he's at the end of the day, he is a very solid major league pitcher. He has a career 3.48 ERA. That's solid. That's good. Like nothing to scoff at. He's been with the Mets his entire career. He's drafted by the Mets, all that, and I'm happy for him because I remember when he got hurt last year, the guy was on like the brink, if not, crying because, he didn't know if he was going to come back or not, which, you always want guys to come back who want to be here, which I think is super cool. But Drew Smith is back, but again, probably not going to see him this year. If anything, maybe like September. And that's probably pushing it. But Drew Smith is back. Yippee.
That's it. Yay!
That's it. Yay. Kodai Senga health update. He's been throwing bullpens. He looks good. Looks healthy. He said it himself. He's been healthy since January, like fully. Why since only January is my only question. But if he's healthy, he's healthy. That's all we're looking up.
I will say, I
talked
talked about this a lot as my biggest concern with Senga is he had so many different injuries that he wouldn't be able to fully rehab every single one. So that could be part of it. That he just had so many different ones that he was like, all right, this month I'm going to focus on the calf. This month I'm going to focus on the shoulder. This month I'm going to focus on this. So I'm not too concerned about that.
Yeah, neither am I, but it's just kind of like one of those. What do you mean? Well, since January? Like, that's it? It's only been a month and a half? But he's been pitching live bullpen, live BP, all that stuff, so he looks good. But he did mention he's going to slowly ramp up by himself, kind of just take it easy, which you saw. I know it's different, but you saw Brandon Nimmo start doing this a few years ago where he himself kind of made a conscious decision to build up in spring training slower because, his first, call it half of his career, extremely injury prone. But maybe hopefully that slow ramp up will, not build him up so quick and allow him to really just ease back into a workload that is necessary because he basically missed all of last year. It's, he pitched 5 innings in the regular season, another, call it, I think it was like 3, 4 in the postseason. So he pitched like maybe 10 innings all of last year, which is very tough. So he basically missed all of last year. I like the fact that he's going to ramp up slowly. I think that's going to do him some good. And again, he's always been very meticulous with his kind of, ways of going about things between his mechanics and his health and all that. So that's what I think is going to work. Going to trust him. He looks good. He looks healthy. Just very excited about that. Next up, Brandon Nimmo, recovering from plantar fasciitis. He is running at 91%, according to Brandon Nimmo. Why 91%? I don't know, but 91% specifically. So he seems to be ramping up at the pace that he can. He seems like he wants to kind of put it in the rearview mirror, but I don't think we could do that, unfortunately. This could definitely be an issue later down the line, later in the season, unfortunately. But I think something that could help with that, which apparently the Mets have already talked to him about, is him kind of being in that rotating DH spot, which could do him some good. I think it's a good reason or a good kind of idea having so many outfielders on this roster is that you can kind of rotate a lot of them between the actual outfield spot and DH. So Brandon Nimmo is definitely going to get some DH time if I were to bet on it. Next, we got Francisco Lindor with his back. He says he's healthy. He says he feels fine. Carlos Mendoza did mention they're going to have continuous conversations with Lindor about his back. He takes pride in kind of playing 162 games, but maybe he plays, 155. That's still a lot, but if that's going to have Lindor at his best, at his healthiest, then so be it. But with that, I think comes the fact that the Mets don't really have a viable backup shortstop unless it's Luis Angel Acuna. But we'll get into that a little later because we do have some news on the utility infielder front.
Speaking of Francisco Lindor, this is a very random stat I saw. Did you
Okay.
know that since 2022, he has the second highest WAR in Major League Baseball?
I did not, but that makes sense.
Like 19.7, and then Aaron Judge is like 27.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever. All right, and then two little quick hits. Ronnie Mauricio probably won't get into games until much later into March. It's kind of what you expect. Coming off ACL tear, you don't want to push that. So he's not going to get into games until later. And then the last injury, AJ Minter, there's a possibility he's not going to be ready for opening day. They're not saying he won't, but we'll see how his hip reacts to the throwing and the managing and the rest and all that. So there is a possibility he won't be ready for opening day, but as of right now, we don't know. So that's all your injuries. There was a lot to get through because now all the guys are there. Now all the injuries are coming in. Obviously, you had it with the Yankees where, everyone's healthy except these guys. But this team looks to be set. David Stern said it himself, quote unquote, by and large, this is the team that they're going to go in with, which I find it very difficult to see somewhere where you can add another position player or another pitcher. Maybe, Dylan Cease's name has still been kind of thrown out there. I don't really see that happening personally. They signed Nick Pivetta, and I saw a lot of people already jumping like either there's no way they're trading Cease or they're absolutely trading Cease. There was no in between. I find it a hard time seeing them trading Cease because I still think they have a really good team on paper, and obviously just taking Cease out of that just makes them so much worse. And then on top of that, it sounds like the Padres' asking price is astronomical. It's one or two of Acuna, Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat, Ryan Clifford, one of those guys, and I'm okay. I'm all right. But
Did they
I don't know if you
ever
have any
resolve their
thoughts on the
ownership
Dylan Cease
issues?
thing. I think they did.
Because I feel like it's hard for me to understand them signing a guy when they were trying to penny pinch because they didn't know the ownership issues. So
Well,
like adding $11 million in payroll a year when they're trying to literally like save like $6 million, and that's like this huge deal. But
they structured it super weird that Nick Pivetta is making $1 million next year. I don't know the rest of the contract, but they backloaded it, and he's making $1 million next year. I'm trying to pull up the rest of the contract,
anything
but
deferred, off the top of your head?
not that I know of, not that I remember seeing.
Oh, is he getting like 15 a
There you go.
year for the last 3 years?
Something like that. Yeah, the last 2 years are 14 and 18 million. Oh, the last 3 years, excuse me. 20 million, 14 million, 18 million. So he's actually making 2.5 million next year. So, yeah. Very weird structure, but again, that's why I don't see them trading Cease, because they specifically structured that deal where he's not making a lot of money next year. So I'm assuming they could compete this year and then, figure it out next year. But I find it pretty difficult to see Dylan Cease coming over to the Mets. But it sounds like if he does get traded, the Mets are probably the top landing spot. But again, I just don't see it. I don't know if you agree, disagree.
I don't, it's so weird, honestly, because like who top landing spot maybe. I mean, I think if the Orioles actually had a brain, he would be an Oriole. Because they had the prospects to do it, and they kind of lost an ace. But I don't think
A
the
little bit.
Orioles would do that.
Apparently, the Red Sox have also done their due diligence. So
How much do you want for him? Okay.
Roman Anthony, all right, hang up.
That's literally that's due
Yeah.
diligence.
No, I know, but still putting it out there. But yeah, but again, by and large, this seems to be the team the Mets are going in with, and yeah. So let's talk about said team. First guy I want to touch on is Clay Holmes. It was noted he's already ahead of most pitchers at this time. By this time in the month, he's already thrown 3 innings, or as they like to call it, 3 up downs. So, throw an inning, sit down, throw an inning, sit down, throw an inning, sit down. So he's already ahead of the game of that, which I think is obviously super cool. I think that says a lot about Clay Holmes as the kind of player that you're gonna start, and he's really working on it, and he's really trying to change things and kind of just get into the necessary activity, ramp up procedure to be a starting pitcher. But so he's already had that, and he is adding a changeup. Changeup was something I mentioned when first signed to add into his arsenal. He's been working on a kick change. So what this is, it's kind of like a changeup with some more drop. It's like the knuckle curves of changeups. So it's like a very what's it called? It's a very normal changeup grip, except you spike the middle finger. So it's kind of like a weird little hook on top of it. But again, this is supposed to add more drop. The only person that because I was reading up on the kick change, kind of learn more about the pitch, because I don't think we've really seen a lot of it. The only other pitcher that has thrown it in the majors that I saw is a reliever on the Giants, Hayden Birdsong, who threw in the same facility that Clay Holmes did, working on the changeup, I believe. But that changeup has a 115 stuff plus, a 35 whiff percentage, a 273 expected weighted on base, and has about 7 inches more drop than the average right-handed changeup. So it kind of goes to show what you can kind of expect from that changeup. Clay Holmes has always had really good stuff. The stuff plus grades are always elite to above average. So an average to above average changeup will definitely help, especially against lefties. And they throw from very similar arm slots, so I think you can expect very similar movement. And if you look at the movement profiles between Birdsong and Clay Holmes, if you kind of just take Birdsong's changeup and put it on Clay Holmes's movement profile, it works pretty well with the sinker. They line up pretty well. So I don't know if any thoughts, any comments on that.
Just got to see if he's able to actually throw it in the zip code that he wants to throw it.
Yeah,
That's the big thing.
fair enough. For sure. Definitely.
And I will say that about Clay Holmes until he proves that he can
Until he
do
does
that
it.
over 5 innings.
Right. Which is fair. Absolutely fair. But next guy we're going to talk about and kind of just talk in as a whole is like kind of the utility infielder spot, because I think that's basically, besides bullpen spots, that's really the only spot up for grabs. So I think this was Saturday. A story came out from the New York Post about Jose Iglesias basically begging to come back to the Mets. He wants to come back, and he's mentioned it quote unquote hurts that he hasn't been brought back yet, because he feels like they started something that went unfinished. Did that article tear me to pieces? Absolutely. Do I want Jose Iglesias back? Not really. Because again, just imagine, right? Jose Iglesias comes back to the Mets. He's the utility infielder. doesn't play well. Look at the flowers, Jose.
Jose, come. I should show you something in the clubhouse. I'm thinking the scene from, I think it was Goodfellas, with Joe Pesci. Like, come on, just follow us. It goes into the room with the plastic sheets. He just
Yeah.
goes, oh, bang!
Bang. Like, imagine. I think I said this when we were talking about the infield. Like, imagine you need to cut Jose Iglesias. Like, imagine that needs to happen. I don't think a lot of people are
Oh
thinking
my
about
god,
that.
I don't think people would expect that. Or be okay with that.
Yeah, they're just thinking of the fact that, like, oh, bring him back. He'll be very similar, whatever. Like, what if he's not? And now, you had the whole OMG thing. You had 2024. You bring him back, and then you cut him. Because he's just not producing. Like,
Was the
I
0-5
think-
to OMG? Now imagine OMG to DFA.
right. Like, I feel like that would suck. That would kind of put a little bit of a damper on the whole thing. Like, this just feels like, if they bring him back, this just feels like trying to recapture magic, which always just doesn't work.
I'm looking at you, Gio Urshela. I'm looking
Yeah.
at you, Matt Carpenter. I'm looking
Right,
at
bring in-
you.
Right.
You can
Whoever-
name a
whoever
million
else.
guys.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't think it makes sense. And I truly think it would hurt a lot more having to cut him than not having him back. And they could sign him and he could be fine and I could be completely wrong. Sure. But there's obvious holes in his game at his age that are very dependent on quote unquote luck, which is basically the batting average and balls in play. And I don't see it happening. And David Stearns himself mentioned he wants roster flexibility. If you add Jose Iglesias to the position player group, that would leave one guy with options, which is Francisco Alvarez, who you are not optioning. So
If they
in your
option
position player
Francisco
group,
Alvarez for Jose Iglesias,
yeah, which is not happening, but you have one guy with options. That means you would have to cut anybody else, which I don't think makes sense. I'm sorry, like, it sucks, but it is what it is. You have Nick Madrigal, who is essentially a younger Jose Iglesias. Very similar games, very similar approaches. Luis Angel Acuna, who has options, is a prospect. Brett Beatty, who has options. Not really a prospect, but he has options. So, at the end of the day, I really don't see Jose Iglesias coming back because I just think it kind of just puts a wrench into a lot of things. Would it be cool? Absolutely. Would I be mad at it? Not really. But at the end of the day, I don't think it makes sense. I don't know if you agree with me.
I 100% agree. 100,000. Like, it would suck. Now, there's another team that could probably use Jose Iglesias because he's better than any options they have right now. But the Mets, you can't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. The only other thing I will say about Jose Iglesias is the fact that he could play shortstop, which anyone else on this roster right now, only Acuna could play shortstop. So that's a ball in his court. He has a leg up on everyone else because of that. So there's that, but I don't know. I just don't see it. But talking about the other guys I mentioned, Madrigal, Beatty, and Cunha. Beatty's going to see reps at a lot of places. In games, he's going to get reps at third and second. He's been working out at first base. And apparently, I'm assuming on the backfields, he's going to get some reps at shortstop. If Brett Beatty can be an average fielding utility player, I think he makes this roster. And I wouldn't hate him making this roster because as of right now, your bench is all righties. Madrigal and Acuna also righties. So unless it's Brett Beatty taking the utility infielder spot, your bench is going to be all righties, which I don't exactly love. I would love one lefty, which Brett Beatty would solve that. But with that being said, Nick Madrigal has not played shortstop in the major leagues. He's played second base and third base, so he's also getting reps at shortstop. Luis Angel Acuna obviously has played shortstop and second base in the minors and in the majors last year, so he's going to get reps at third base. So it seems like it's up to those three guys to kind of fill out the utility infielder spot, which I think, makes sense. I would love if Brett Beatty can be a competent fielder at all those positions. Because I think him as a utility infielder, given his status, I think just works perfectly for him. Because this is going to be a little harsh, but he doesn't deserve a starting role. He's had 2.5, 3 chances at it, and he never ran away with it. When you have someone like Mark Vientos who fucking grabbed it by the throat and fucking sprinted with it. So I think Beatty is a perfect, in-house option for that utility infielder spot if he can be a competent fielder in all those positions.
Because that's the thing with Beatty, too. It's not like he's this otherworldly defender. If he was, then you probably make space for him. But he's shown you a couple of things at the bat, but not nearly even close to as consistent as you want it to be. So he could just be a good fielder. He probably has a spot on this team.
Yeah. To his credit, in his, was it 171 plate appearances, however many games that was, he graded out as a above average defender at third base. He had 2 outs above average with his 78th percentile at third base last year. So he made strides in his defense. Absolutely, that's great. Obviously, like you said, the bat just never came up with it. If he could take that above average defense at third base, be average at second, I don't really care about first, as long as you can catch and scoop. And then shortstop, that's hopefully in a pinch type of thing. So if you can just hold your own there, I think that makes sense because Nick Madrigal also has an option. So he doesn't need to, he's not a lock to be on this roster. So if Brett Beatty can show me something at those positions, I would love him as a utility infielder. Nick Madrigal would be my second option, and then Luis Angel Acuna would be third because as much as I'm not like super high on Acuna, he did show flashes in major leagues. He was not good in AAA. He needs more reps there, so I would want him playing every day rather than, once in a blue moon. Even if it's like a platoon with McNeil, I wouldn't like. But as a utility infielder, we'll see what happens with that. From what I've read and what I've heard, and Brett Beatty didn't really look great at second base. He looked a little clunky, but when spring training games arrive, I will finally be able to see it with my own eyes, and we'll see. And we'll circle back to that. But next guy I want to talk about, Francisco Alvarez, Justin's favorite player. He has changed his swing, or has tweaked his swing. I'll say tweaked, because it's very similar. So, over the offseason, he worked with a recommended training facility by JD Martinez. I think he knows, the owner or whatever. And if you watch some of his batting practice, you see so much JD Martinez in Francisco Alvarez now. He's got, the little swivel, the kind of, little toe taps, and then, that kind of, I don't want to say uppercut, but, the swing path where you can really go with the opposite field is there as well. The same, again, swing path is the best way I could put it. But I don't know. You see a lot of JD Martinez and Francisco Alvarez now, and that's another thing that a lot of people, some people notice, some people talk about it, but JD Martinez obviously was good in the first half, really bad in the second half, brutal towards the end of the year. But what he brought to this team, to the young guys, to the organization, completely invaluable. He, his wisdom, his experience, you know, like he brought a lot to the team. And I think you see a lot of it in Francisco Alvarez, and I think you kind of see some of it in Mark Vientos as well. But I'm very excited to see Francisco Alvarez play in a game because I'm really, really interested to see how his swing kind of pans out with that.
And that's something that is. That's why people talk about veterans all the time. And baseball is such a technical sport more than any other sport that having a veteran on this team can revolutionize young guys. Like, it's not a perfect one-to-one, but literally look at the whole story of Roy Halladay and Mariano Rivera, where Mo taught him the cutter, and then Roy Halladay ended up being a Hall of Famer. So it's one of those things of you never know how that having that veteran presence on the team, as long as they're actually good and can hit, can affect those younger guys.
Absolutely. And I think, again, you're already starting to see it. And I think as spring training goes on and as the year goes on, I think a lot of people are going to look at it and be like, wow, there's a lot of JD Martinez and some of these young guys. But the last thing I want to talk about, 'cause I'm trying to find the tweet, because I want to give credit where credit's due. Jordan Simpson over on Twitter noticed that Jeff McNeil's using a different bat. Last year, he kind of had like a no knob bat. It was a very weird looking bat, whatever. But now he's swinging a quote unquote standard, like the regular little knob. And then this morning, Tom Verducci was on MLB Network and mentioned that he did change his bat and he is looking to, change his swing and things like that and kind of change his approach, which we saw a bit of last year. So, again, this is why I cannot give up on Jeff McNeil. He made conscious changes to his approach last year, came in with a new bat, and in one of the Twitter videos of batting practice, you can overhear Jeff McNeil in the background talking about he hired a different trainer over the offseason. So, this guy is trying to improve, and this guy had a very good second half. And he said it himself, what I think makes a lot of sense. He wants to and needs to have a good spring training to kind of propel into the regular season. Because, you know what, I'm going to look at it now. Because he kind of mentioned how having a slow spring training kind of gave him a slow start to the season. So if we look at 2021, which was like his first bad season, in 16 games, he hit 109, 255 on base, 239 slug. He went on to have his worst year of his career. In 2022, this is kind of the outlier. He in 11 games, he hit 281, a 333 on base, 406 slug. It's actually not that bad, but a 90 weighted runs created plus. Obviously, in 2022, he went on to win the batting title. And then in 2023 and 2024, he only played in 8 and 5 games respectively. In 2023, he hit 174. In 2024, he did not record a single hit in spring training.
Correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he also dealing with injuries both those years?
Yes. Yeah, I forget about 23, but I remember last year he was coming in with an elbow issue.
I'd assume only 5 games though in 23.
Yeah.
I'd assume there was something there.
I think something else was going on in 23 as well. I honestly just forget. But yeah, one of the biggest things I'm looking for is Jeff McNeil in spring training. I'm looking at Jeff McNeil. What has he got? How's his spring training? If it's a good spring training, I feel really good about Jeff McNeil heading to the season. If it's subpar, I think we can be a little worried. I think there's a pretty direct correlation with how the spring trainings have going. But yeah, that's kind of the last thing I had. I don't know if you had anything else to kind of touch on when it came to the Mets. Anything you're looking at?
We are in best shape of our life / minor adjustment season.
Absolutely, and I love it. We're so back.
We're so back.
But yeah, spring training games are going to start by the end of this week. So we'll have baseball on our TV screens. Can't wait. Position players mostly have reported for both teams, and things are getting underway. So it's gonna pick up pretty quick, and next thing you know, here's opening day. So, Justin, you have anything else to add before we send the guys off? But all right, with that being said, spring training, we're back. Yippee. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. As always, remember to subscribe on YouTube if you're watching us there. Never miss an episode. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, follow us, leave us a 5-star review. Lets us know that you're enjoying the show and that you can never miss an episode. Leave us comments, leave us questions, all that good stuff on social media as well. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook at Triboro Podcast. Follow us. We'll have content coming your way with spring training and all of that. But once again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.